Flashback features two stories from 37 years ago today, May 12th, 1977. The first is from reporter Jack Kavanagh on fears about fighting oil spills in and out of Narragansett Bay. This is what had southern New Englanders so concerned. This incident in the North Sea, an oil rig that sprang a huge leak. Because they were talking about drilling for oil off our waters, we were worried about an oil spill here and the devastating effects it could cause.
Steve Olson has been studying offshore oil and the fishing industry for the New England Regional Commission for the past 2 years. Do we have the technology to handle an oil spill in North Atlantic seas?
Clearly not.
Another big story this day in 1977, in fact through much of the mid to late 1970s, was the exploits of this man, Joe Zinno. He was, I think, from North Providence. And throughout much of the period, he was obsessed with manufacturing homemade aircraft and trying to get them to fly.
I'm looking to decrease the weight, preferably decrease the weight first, and then modify some of the design.
Even though Joe Zinno didn't fully accomplish what he set out to do, one has to admire his creativity, his ingenuity, and his patience. Just look at this craft. Now, when he gives this one away, Joe says if he gets the backing, he's going to try it all again. Don't bet against him. John Sweeney, Newswatch 10 at Quonset Point.
Some of the film was washed out, but even with that, I think you could see what the old Quonset State Airport used to look like. A few years ago, there were plans being discussed to include an exhibit of Joe Zinno's plane at the Quonset Air Museum. A relative of Joe's told me several years ago that there is a plaque honoring Joe's exploits at the Smithsonian in Washington. The last time we checked, Joe was a California resident. John Sweeney, who reported on Joe Zinno's experimental planes, passed away a few years ago. Jack Kavanagh, the other reporter in 1977, is now retired from TV news and living in California, last we heard. And that concern about the oil spills was due to the fact that in the late 1970s, economic development officials in Rhode Island thought that Rhode Island's economy would be vastly improved by taking advantage of a new industry at the time, which was drilling for oil in the Georges Bank. And not far off our shores. The idea was Quonset Point would be the base for these offshore drilling operations. All the supplies would be sent out to the oil rigs from Quonset Point. The repairs would be made at Quonset Point and the like. Sadly, that all came to an end when some drilling was done on an exploratory basis and they didn't find any oil.
You are a human Google.
Hey.